All right, 7:01 and you're live.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, good evening, everyone. Today is November 17th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Oneonta Common Council, and I will call the roll. Well, let me first call the meeting to order. This meeting is called to order. Now I will call the roll. Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Risberger.
Here.
Councilmember Lapari Shu.
Here.
Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Rafter.
Here.
Councilmember Drenick.
Here.
Okay, everybody is here. We're going to open tonight with a public hearing. This is a hearing on the ordinance, which was passed unanimously by the council 2 weeks ago on October. I was late on the desks on October 26th of this year, and it was passed unanimously on November 3rd, 2 weeks ago today. This is an ordinance that requires the wearing of masks when in all outdoor public spaces in the MU1, which is our downtown district, as well as the wearing of masks throughout the rest of the city when you're in outdoor public spaces and cannot be assured of being 6 feet distanced from all other purposes. It also includes a requirement that masks are worn by customers in all retail establishments, restaurants, and bars, other than when seated and eating. I have not received any written correspondence regarding this. Carrie, do you have people in the waiting room here to comment?
I do. There are 2 people listed as waiting.
Okay, let them in.
All right, they are both in and connecting to audio. You have 1 phone caller who shows is connected but still muted, and then a computer user who just shows is connected.
Okay. Let me start with the individual who is labeled JV and has the beautiful false landscape screenshot. If you could just introduce yourself, name and address, and we welcome your comments. You're muted if you're JV, you're muted if you're talking.
Hi, I am actually a resident of Delaware County and just wanted to hear what was going on.
This is an opportunity, this is not a question and answer session, but it's an opportunity for you to comment on the proposed mask ordinance requiring masks at all times.
I think it's
in public
extremely,
spaces, outdoors, downtown.
extremely positive, totally for it.
Okay, and could you just identify yourself?
My name is Jessica Vecchione, and I live in Hamden in Delaware County.
Okay, great. Any other comments on it, Jessica?
Doing the right thing.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have another caller. Carrie, did you say? I don't see anybody else on the screen.
They disconnected immediately after you called on JB.
Okay. Did you receive any written comments, Carrie?
I have no written correspondence regarding the matter, no.
Okay. With that, we will close the public hearing. And it is my intent to sign this into law immediately following this meeting tonight. Okay, with that, we have a special guest tonight, and that is Jody Zakrevsky, the CEO of Otsego Now. Jody is here to provide us with an update on projects and initiatives that Otsego now is currently undertaking here within the city of Oneonta. And then I believe he will entertain any questions from council members. Jody, thank you for being here. The floor is yours, and I believe you can have the ability to share screen if you want to share some slides with us.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Honorable City Council members. I appreciate the opportunity to do a presentation. This is my first time doing a presentation on Zoom, so it may not go that well, but I will give it my best. Specifically, I want to talk about activities that Otsego now has been doing around in the city of Oneonta and around the city of Oneonta. But before I start that, I would like to explain that in March of this year, we did an analysis of what revenues our agency was losing and projects that were no longer being moved ahead. The Chamber of Commerce moved out of our office in March. One of the other things that happened was that one of our projects that we were supposed to sell a piece of property for about $200,000. That developer walked away from the project because of COVID-19. Hale Transportation moved out of one of our rental buildings that cost us another $60,000. Loss of certain grants that we received. The county reduced our budget by 15%. All totaled, we lost an estimated of $460,000 in anticipated revenues this year. So we had to take some drastic actions in the spring about how we're going to reduce our operating cost. I'm still projecting overall a loss of revenue of about $150,000, although year to date we're shy of about $30,000. So we've actually made a good comeback on the amount of revenues that we have lost. Regarding some of the activities we've been involved in, we've been providing emergency assistance to some of our small businesses affected by COVID-19. We ended up, at the request of the county, taking over their micro enterprise grant program. We provided up to $35,000 for small businesses. And to date, we've awarded a little over $60,000 to businesses in the cities, $18,000 to Silks and Treasures consignment, a little under $7,000 to the underground attic, and about $35,000 grant to Wyckoff Florists. In addition to that, Otsego now has been one of the participants in the city's Survive and Thrive campaign. There's a photo of Megan Marino, the director of our finance administration, who also served on the committee recommending grants to city businesses. She was on the review board that helped determine which businesses would receive grants from the city. In addition to that, Otsego now used its training rooms for central Census Bureau training. It was about 4 weeks of individual training that the Census Bureau put on to train people on how to do census information. One of the big things we've done this year at the request of my board was to start a new marketing effort to attract new residents and new businesses. So we've invested in a new digital marketing campaign to downtown businesses to expand in Otsego County, downstate businesses. The agency is spending about $52,000, $500 of its own funds, as well as another $10,000 grant we received from Southern Tier 8 for a total budget of about $62,500 to attract downstate residents and businesses to the surrounding area. We've hired Vibrant Brands to oversee the project and PaperKite to prepare the landing pages for our marketing campaigns. This is an example of one of the landing pages for both Facebooks and LinkedIn. We talk about what infrastructure, workforce, types of diversity of the economy in our county and why you should relocate. We have actually 2 different campaigns going on, one for business interest and one for personal interest. So we have a card in there in our landing page that says, are you interested in businesses, or are you interested in personally moving up to our area? Now this one may be a little tricky. I'll attempt to do it.
Jody, that's playing on another screen.
Well, I will stop that one and talk about the next project. We are involved in a new effort to market the opportunity zones in the county. And interestingly enough, the only opportunity zone is in the city of Oneonta. This gives you an idea of the opportunity zones that stretches all the way down from our Oneonta Business Park all the way to downtown on the south side of downtown Main Street. In June 2019, EDA added opportunity zones of one of its 5 investment priorities. And in September of this year, Southern Tier 8 entered into a contract with the Opportunity Exchange out of, I believe it's Chicago, for $69,500 to create marketable community profiles, manage multiple profiles for neighborhoods, cities, and counties, and opportunity zones, and update and share profiles, and survey the community needs. Oddly enough, I'm actually serving as the chairman for this committee. Again, the city of Oneonta's opportunity zone is the only zone in Otsego County, and all marketing efforts will go to properties in the Oneonta zone businesses, and investment opportunities in the city of Oneonta. The Opportunity Zone Exchange, probably the most important thing, is item number 1, which lists projects in opportunity zones, which include a listing to over 1,490 business investors throughout the United States. So basically what ends up happening is that properties in the downtown that you may be trying to fill or maybe trying to market, or the Oneonta rail yards, or even investors looking to invest in Corning, all of those projects are in the opportunity zone. So it makes it available to roughly 1,500 investors throughout the United States. One of the other projects that we've been heavily involved in this year is we continue to invest in new business parks. We've worked on creating a new master plan for Oneonta rail yards, which was completed in the summer of this year. And as you'll notice, it incorporates the wetlands in the parks with walking trails along with the rest of the industrial park. As some of you may recall, there was some community concern that we were not incorporating the wetlands, we're not bringing in hiking trails, we were not utilizing that to the best of our ability. This new plan takes into account that. We hired the MRB group to prepare the master plan update and a subdivision plan for the Oneonta rail yards. The total cost to our agency was about $32,800 this year. And in here, you'll see the orange along the bottom is one of the hiking trails. We've still kept in rail siding along the south side of the park. And I've had discussions this week actually with the rail yard owners about furthering that marketing of that property. And we're continuing to invest. We've budgeted for next year $30,000 for cleanup of one of the lots in 2021, which is our first phase on cleaning up the industrial park. One of the other things we're continuing to work on is to work with Corning. As you know, in 2018, we worked with Corning on getting a $12 million upgrade to their plant. In 2019, we had a $1.3 million solar array installed in that park. And this year, we're continuing dialogues about future activities and future investment that Corning is looking to possibly make in their plant in Oneonta. We realize that Corning is certainly in the game of a whole new era as far as life sciences. They're going to be making millions and millions of glass vials, and we want to be able to capitalize on that and hopefully bring some of that production to our community. Just outside Oneonta, we continue to work with some of the high-tech companies such as Systematic Power Systems, Custom Electronics, Grid Edge Networks, a new company, Be Terrific, and one we're working on now, Phase Technologies, and I'll talk about Brooks in a second. In mid-March, we became aware that Ioxis was being sold. It was being bought by a company out of Knoxville, Tennessee. I met with the owner of that company on April 1st, which was interesting because everything was in lockdown at that time. At that point in time, he indicated that he was planning on closing Ioxis and moving the company to Tennessee. We worked with him on providing a pilot agreement, sales tax exemptions, mortgage recording tax, and also received a $1 million Empire State Development Excelsior tax credit. He's now indicated that he does want to keep the facility here, and he's asked us to work on a community development application on his companies for future growth. Again, he's looking at roughly a $14 million expansion, both the acquisition of the building that we currently own, as well as an addition onto that building. So we're continuing to work with him on making sure that we keep him happy and grow his company, and hopefully it double in size by next year. We're continuing with Custom Electronics. This month, actually says in December, it will be completed. Actually, we completed the project last week of a $2.4 million project expansion, which created 50 new positions at the company. We're doing the final drawdown request for about $245,000 to close that grant out. And we're very pleased with what Custom has been working with us on some of the other projects we'll talk about. One of the companies that they're working on acquiring is Grid Edge Technologies. They're in the final phase of acquiring that. They've already made 3 down payments on it. They have the 4th one tentatively coming. Grid Edge Networks is another energy company out of Massachusetts. They'll be closing that facility and moving all production and employment to Custom Electronics. We're working with another company called Be Terrific, which is a New Jersey company which manufactures flexible digital displays, which means you can actually take these displays and bend them. So they're big with movie productions, Walt Disney. They've had several meetings with some of the news media in New York City about doing digital displays that are flexible. And this is an up-and-coming technology that we're hoping to move here. The company president, I've met with him now twice. He's indicated that he wants to close the New Jersey operations and relocate everything to Oneonta. So it probably will be another year before we ultimately decide on a site. We're hoping that he chooses the Oneonta rail yards. Earlier this year in the Oneonta Business Park, we worked with one of the owners of one of the buildings to market his building on his behalf. We actually hired a realtor out of Syracuse, and United Auto Supply purchased that facility and moved their regional distribution to that site. We have just started beginning discussions with Brooks Bottling, looking to expand their facility. As you know, we had serious discussions about 3 years ago, and that sort of tapered off. We've now revisited with them, and we've met with their attorneys on possible expansion that at this point in time, they really don't want me to talk about, so I really won't say too much about that. And we're continuing to work with Springbrook. Hopefully, they'll make a decision this first quarter of this year of 2021, whether to move ahead with this project. They're looking at a $45 million housing project in the Ford complex that we continue to look at. What they're looking for Otsego now is to provide a pilot agreement that would really deviate from our normal pilot However, they would keep the entire ground floor 100% taxable. So with that, I will stop and actually go back to questions and answers.
There we go. Good. Dave Risberger.
Yeah, first of all, Jody, I just want to thank you for coming and giving this presentation. I think this really gives us a better idea of what's going on with Otsego now. I have a couple questions actually, but I'm not sure how much information you can provide us of these. I was wondering, how does the pilot agreement that that Springbrook is looking to do, how does it differ from other pilot agreements that we've done? And Ioxis, if the company from Knoxville, Tennessee that's looking to purchase, if they're looking to invest $14 million into the building, are they looking to expand the product? Is it a different product, or are they just looking to expand the current product? I don't know. What can you tell us on either of those?
With Springbrook, we were just getting to the point in the fall of negotiating what terms they wanted. The pilot is unique and deviates from our normal pilot projects policy, because normally we don't do housing projects. And so we're expecting some people to say, well, how come you're providing them with a pilot when I own 6 apartments and nobody gave us a pilot? So that becomes an issue for our agency. Earlier this year, we changed one of our policies and we appropriated a pilot for the Hampton Inn in just right around Cooperstown. And we took a lot of heat from other hotel owners over that. It would have brought in another probably $100,000 to our agency, but obviously because of COVID-19, that project died. Nobody is financing hotels. So we're conscious that as we deviate from our pilots, we're going to expect some people to be upset about them. And that's one of the big issues. The second thing is the duration. Normally, the most we give is a 15-year agreement. At the present time, they're looking probably for a 25-year agreement. And we've indicated to them that they've got to really justify that to us. They have to do a cost benefit analysis and provide us with the financials that shows that this project cannot proceed, that the revenues aren't there for them to do this project unless they get that type of an abatement. The third thing that's unique about this abatement is we never split it, where the upper floors are going through a pilot, but the ground floor is being 100% fully taxable. So there's 3 unique things about this pilot that we're hopefully going to wrestle with should Springbrook decide ultimately that they want to go ahead with this project. So those are the 3 big issues that we'll be discussing. Regarding Ioxis, it's not even though the company president says he's staying here, he likes what we're doing. He likes the attention we've gotten. We've gotten the state of New York to get involved in it. We've had the Chamber of Commerce involved with some of the dialogues. We've had some of the realtors supply them with information about available houses for some of their key people. We've really done a tremendous outreach. We've had Senator Schumer's office talk to him in North Carolina, in Tennessee. So we've made a big effort. We've actually brought in the New York Power Authority to look at low-cost energy for his expansion. So we've really put together a strong package, much more than he would have gotten in Tennessee. And I think he really does appreciate that. But until he purchases our building, it's not a done deal as far as I'm concerned. Now, with that said, he's planning on expanding his product line. He purchased the facility because he basically is a huge battery production company. He started off providing high-speed batteries for race cars, and then branched out from that. And this is a new area that he wants to get into, is ultra capacitors. And basically what he was interested in was not so much he was really interested in purchasing all of that equipment that was being offered for sale, because he doesn't have that type of equipment down in Tennessee, nor one of the good things about Oneonta is he doesn't have the ability to ship that equipment down there. They're large pieces of equipment, and his current facilities in Tennessee can't physically handle that type of equipment in their current space. But he's sent us a list of other things he wants us to help market for his entire company, and he's looking at broadening his manufacturing base into other areas. But again, we've been working with them since April 1st, and it seems like every week there's a new twist. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Mark.
Okay, so Jody, I really do want to commend you on the Ioxis, and Be Terrific sounds really exciting. So congratulations on that and several other things that you listed. I have a question though about your $62,500 relocation campaign.
Yeah.
I stepped down as chair, co-chair of the Survive and Thrive main committee. So I don't know whether or not you guys have been meeting regularly or not. Barbara Ann Hegan is the co-chair of the marketing committee, and she has been working with her committee on bringing together a couple of different agencies and a lot of local talent as well for a campaign to do what seems to be essentially the same thing that you're looking to do. And I don't think that that's an issue, but I wonder whether or not you guys have been having conversation, whether or not there is a coordination that's planned between what you are doing and what the marketing committee of the Survive and Thrive group has already committed almost a very similar amount of monies to. So going forward, is there a strategy for communication? Maybe back off to my very first question. Are you guys still meeting? Does everybody know what's going on with one another?
To answer your question, we were initially meeting, and probably within the last 2 months, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason is, well, let me step back. My board of directors really wanted us to issue this campaign 4 months ago. They wanted an immediate response. And I took a lot of flack because we are a public authority. We have certain procedures. We have to go out for requests for proposals. We have to solicit, and that just took some time. Although my board is we want this up and running. We don't want to wait for anybody else. Just get this thing moving. So that was one of the reasons we just went ahead and started it. The second thing we did was we hired Vibrant Brands at a very minimal cost, $2,500. And Vibrant Brands is basically overseeing this project for us and realizes that they don't want to spend a lot of money on design, they want, out of the other $50,000, $60,000, all but $10,000 is going directly into buying ad campaigns. They said, let's not spend a lot of money on landing pages and all this stuff. Let's just get into the market. Now, we had our first meeting last week with them to review the results. And I was shocked that we had somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 10,000 hits in the first week from downstate residents and businesses. And that was the other reason we hired Vibrant Brands, is that I don't know anything about marketing. We wanted somebody to watch what we were doing and to watch, ultimately they selected PaperKite to go ahead with this, to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Now, since that time, two things have happened. One was that we've learned from some of our mistakes. One of the mistakes was on, not LinkedIn, well, one of the social medias, it was shown in our county. And the whole purpose was to make it for downstate and Long Island and New Jersey. And some of the residents, some of the businesses in Cooperstown saw that ad, that one landing page. And in one of the landing pages, it gives two examples of itineraries because we just don't want people to look at them. We want to give them an idea. You can come up and spend a weekend here. So we have 2 landing pages of what you can do for 3 days, one in Oneonta and one in Cooperstown. And what happened was some of the businesses in Cooperstown said, how come we aren't on there? So what ended up happening is that we decided that in our landing pages, we want to make an amendment to that and have both the Chamber of Commerce listed, the County Chamber of Commerce listed on their webpage, as well as the Cooperstown destination listed, so that if people want further information, they can contact them directly. But we try to explain to some of the businesses that we are not a tourist agency. We're not here to bring people up for tourism. We're just trying to get people to think possibly about living here or moving their business here. Because right now, if you live in Brooklyn, you don't know where Otsego County is. And we're just trying to get people down there to say, hey, this looks like an interesting place. If I'm thinking about moving my family, or I'm thinking about moving my small business, maybe I could consider this place.
So Jody,
so the answer, so for next year in our budget, we budgeted another $50,000 for continuing marketing. And certainly we want to try to, in fact, I reached out to Cooperstown Destiny, I don't know their name. And we were supposed to meet before we started this whole thing. And when the COVID-19 hit SUNY Oneonta so hard, they said, we're not coming to Oneonta. So we haven't had a real concerted effort with either the chamber or the Cooperstown people. And that's probably because we just said, let's just move this thing out fast, because we're tired of waiting. My board is tired of waiting. They want to see some action. And so that's why we moved ahead.
all right. So Jody, just what I would suggest is that what you're doing is very similar to the production that the marketing committee of the Survive and Thrive group is doing. And what I would say is that that's not a bad thing, and that it makes sense for there to be some collaboration, especially around the end data points. So, you know, I'm going to reach out to Barbara Ann, and I'll maybe reconnect with you at another time, but I feel like we can maximize the effort rather than duplicating efforts. And communication is, you know, I think has maybe been missing, given the fact that Barbara Ann was surprised by this. So I think on the other side of this, we might have a conversation to see how we might be able to work together and make something even more strong come out of the twin efforts. That sound about right?
I think that's a really good idea. And again, January, we have a new budget, and that's only a month and a half away.
Good. Thank you, Jim.
Anybody else have any questions for Jody? Len Carson?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Jody, as others have said tonight, thank you very much for coming and doing this presentation for us. Much appreciated. I also want to say thank you for working with Corning, one of our star employers. I appreciate you working with them and keeping them here. And hopefully in 21, 22, we'll see them expanding again. Having conversations with B2 Displays, that sounds, as Mark said, very exciting. Working with excess power batteries, the new owner of Ioxis, $14 million investment potential is also pretty exciting. But I was wondering if you could just expand upon your discussions that you said you had recently with the rail yard owners, or the rail yard, the railroad, excuse me, about the rail yards, and where those discussions may lead us.
Okay. There's a number of things with the rail yards. Is that one is that it's not as huge as we thought it was, because of the wetlands, because of the looking at the city's ordinance as far as parking requirements, streets, keeping rail access. We really only have about 35, 38 acres of real developable property. So we scaled back the project into what can we do? What can we actually do there? And while I haven't gotten a response, one of the things I suggested to Corning was that it's in an opportunity zone. I'd be willing to sell you the whole thing if you want to build a brand new campus there. And obviously Corning is very concerned about any real discussions about their future plans. But we are in discussions on those. One of the things that we've been having discussions, or I plan to have discussions later this week, actually on Thursday or Friday of this week, with the railroad, is what can they bring to the table to help market this? Because of COVID-19, there's been a lot of renewed interest in siting along rail lines. They've actually reached out to me about 2 weeks ago and say, hey, we haven't talked since you started there. And we want to start this dialogue again about how we can assist in marketing that to potential companies that we may be interested in providing rail sidings. So that's really just an initial discussion. We're very encouraged that they've actually reached out to us as opposed to us reaching out to them. And as I indicated, we've never shied away. We've always kept in the plan that rail siding at that site. That is an opportunity that not many communities have that we want to capitalize on.
And also, we have a large volume of water supply, clean water, and a sewer system that is not even at 50% of its capacity. But the new master plan that you spent $32,800 on and that you got back in the summertime, I just looked on your webpage and I didn't see it listed. Is that something that you can share with the council?
Sure, absolutely.
That would be great. That would bring us all up to speed on the possibilities. And then as for the Springbrook project, is that something that you're going to involve the city near the final end stage of the discussions with that organization of what type of finalization of the pilot? Because that seems to be rather extreme, a 25 compared to your normal 15-year pilot.
Yes, obviously that's going to be involved with the city. I've already had some preliminary discussions earlier this spring, summer with the mayor about the possibility of it. The problem has been because of COVID-19, everybody's pulling back on projects. So we really haven't, since the summer, had any discussions on it because we don't know whether the board of directors at Springbrook is ultimately going to move ahead with it. It's really from their aspect, dollars and cents. They don't want to necessarily make money off this, but they don't want to lose money either. And that's a big investment on their part if they don't have people moving to Oneonta. I think based on the optimism of some of the vaccines that are being rolled out, as well as listening to MBT's forecast for the future at a program this morning, that they're very optimistic about the economy moving ahead in the coming years. That I think we're going to see a regrowth of the economy strongly. Actually, there was a strong economy this year, just hasn't been that well reported. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that Springbrook will move ahead with this. And certainly the city council and the city leaders will be involved in those discussions.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess lastly, are you still the single point of contact for economic development within the city of Oneonta?
Well, that's somewhat changing now too. We had a meeting this morning on the opportunity zones with Southern Tier 8 and the sister counties, 8 other counties. And one of the discussions we had was that we should be really bringing in 2 other people. Right now, representing our county is myself and the county planning director, Eric. And we suggested that they bring in Judy representing the city because ultimately this opportunity zone is in the city of Oneonta. And the other person they should bring in is Barbara Ann Hagan, representing the chamber, because they have not been part of those discussions for the last 4 months. Likewise, we explained to them that unlike Broome County, their Chamber of Commerce and their IDA is run by the same person. The same as in Tioga County. They have one group of people that run both. I said, here we're somewhat separated and we should be really bringing those people in. So I view Judy from your community development office as really a key person in the contact for economic development in the city. She does a great job. Unfortunately, Judy, like our office, is just swamped. We have way too much work going on. And I think that, Judy has the same problem. But we're trying to bring her in on some of these specific projects to help bridge the liaison between the city and the county.
Again, thank you for your time, Jody.
My pleasure.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay. Jody, very much appreciate you taking the time to bring us up to date on all of the activities that are taking place that affect the city. Let's keep the communication open back and forth. I know it's been tough this past year. Communication has been not normal, but hopefully we've got better times coming ahead. So thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for being here today, Jody.
Yep, and I'll send everybody the new master plan for the Oneonta Business Park, and I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. And again, yes, I agree that we've got to communicate more often.
And I also want to thank Megan Marino for all she did for us over the last few months as part of the Survive and Thrive group. She was very actively involved. We appreciate Otsego now letting her, provide that much time and energy. It was very helpful.
I appreciate the compliments on her ability. She's a dynamic individual, and I would be lost without her. No question about it.
Okay, thank you, Jody.
All right, thank you. I'll let you guys enjoy.
You're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting if you like.
I'm going to have some dinner now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, before we move on with the agenda, I'll just say a few words. First, I'll just confirm, I know it's been reported in the media today that both Connie and I are quarantining. Connie's under a mandatory quarantine. I'm under a voluntary quarantine. Connie had went in as a substitute teacher Thursday and Friday to the Cooperstown Elementary School. On Saturday, apparently one of the teachers in the school who she spent quite a bit of time with, both wearing masks, but still spent quite a bit of time with, wound up getting sick and was tested on Monday, yesterday, and tested positive. So Connie is under mandatory quarantine, and I am voluntarily quarantining as well. We both received the PCR tests today at Bassett, and should get our results in 4 or 5 days. So it's just a reminder that COVID is with us, and it's not that hard for it to spread. So all precautions are important to take.
Mayor.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just want to wish you and Connie well, and hope that no signs or more symptoms for Connie.
Thank you, Len. I appreciate that very much. I think everybody in the council received a copy today of the spring 2021 plan for SUNY Oneonta. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it yet. The basics of it are that they are striving to have as many as 20% of their classes be in-person classes. The remaining 80% be virtual. Dormitory occupancy would be reduced by 2/3. It would be reduced to 1/3 of total capacity, which means they would only bring back about 1/3 of the 3,000 students they have a capacity for on campus. All students will be required to have a negative test before returning to campus. And that has to be done within, I think, 3 or 4 days before arrival. And there will be mandatory bi-weekly surveillance testing for the rest of the semester. I think one thing that I was pleased to see, which was missing from the plan for the fall semester, was a considerable greater focus on off-campus activities. There is a much more structured approach to dealing with off-campus students, including strict consequences for non-compliance with the rules and regulations designed to prevent transmission. The other part is the appointment of Dr. Franklin Chambers to a new position of Vice President for External Affairs. His role and his responsibility will be to have better engagement between the college and off-campus students so that the off-campus students are in closer communication with the college. He will be responsible for overseeing COVID prevention efforts off campus and for better integrating students as constructive members of the college community. I see all of these as very good signs and things that we didn't have in the fall semester. And finally, I just want to say that I think we've all seen the open communication between the college administration, President Craig, the city, the community, has given us a stronger sense of partnership. So with that, there is, I think, at least I feel, an increased sense of confidence in having a successful spring 2021 semester as some students return. Questions, anybody regarding that? Thoughts? Okay. All right, let me just switch screens here. Okay, with that, we will go to our board and commission reports. Commission on Community Relations and Human Rights, and that is, of course, Councilmember Murphy.
Sorry, I lost my button. Yes, we met last month. Still in the process of working on our meeting for November/December. From what I understand, it's typically because of the new year, it sometimes straddles between November and December. Our last meeting was really spent mostly discussing the plaque in Neowa Park. At the moment, I've been encouraged to continue to reach out to what's the word I'm looking for? Concerned parties, to continue to develop recommendations and receive insight from different groups, and then hopefully hear back from a couple other folks within a month so I can make my recommendations to the council and the board.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Luke. Let's go to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and that is Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
Hey, so I actually noticed that it was on the agenda today, but we met prior to our last meeting, and so I gave my report at our last meeting. That's available on YouTube for anyone who's interested.
We won't make you repeat it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, Mark, do you have a question?
Not so
Jen,
much question, but I'm thinking that our,
Non-existent report.
I think our reports may have gotten switched. The Board of Public Service did meet between these
Gotcha.
two council meetings.
Apparently, we have a bit of an error here. Apologize for that, but
Not a problem.
go for it, Mr. Drenick.
Okay. All right. So at 10 Division, well, the meeting was held November 5th, Board of Public Service. 10 Division Street, two neighbors on either side have really had an issue with this and are going to be very happy to know that things are being taken care of finally. It's been declared an unsafe and blighted building. Windows had been blown out on the first floor, trash thrown out the windows. Maybe that's how they were blown out, because there's glass just everywhere. It's probability that these are squatters. It's seemingly a drug house. OPD is regularly connected to the goings on at 10 Division. So they've been, it's been ordered cleaned up. It's been ordered boarded up and secured within 10 days. So today is the 17th. So I presume that that's been done now. And an eviction order has been levied. With hopes that that 10 Division Street becomes a non-issue for the neighbors on either side. 317 Chestnut Street is an electrical inspection appeal that was granted. 86 Elm Street, there was smoke and heat detectors and alarms and property use certification. There's a certified letter or letters that were unclaimed. And I'm guessing what I've learned is that that's not an excuse. That administrative fee appeal has been denied. 244 to 248 Main Street, sprinkler inspection. Administrative fee appeal was denied. Smoke detectors were apparently done at approximately the same time that the sprinkler inspection was to have been done. So COVID would not have been an excuse there. So again, that was denied. 8 3rd Street. This is really the reason I attend these meetings. As much as anything else, these unfolding stories. At 8 3rd Street, the last time I got with you guys, there was a landlord had been locked out by her tenant who was doing business on the premises. There were boxes everywhere. It had been moved possibly from a larger place. Garbage bags all over, day-old food and feces, no smoke detectors, multiple residents, 9 plus a baby. There's a room that was framed up in the basement, a dirt floor, a cot and a TV. Anyway, it was ordered, vacated, and repaired a month ago. And so the update is that the occupants from the basement have been removed. They're down to the tenant that should rightfully be there, and that person's nephew and another couple. Still trying to figure that piece out. They have put in smoke detectors. There is, however, still garbage and a lack of fire safety. And it has been ordered as retaining the unsafe designation. So I think it's a case of a little late, and the landlord still can't get in. So I'm sure there'll be a 3rd chapter. It's a trilogy, as I understand this particular property to be, and I'll report that the next time we're together. And that's all I got.
Thank you for that graphic visual. We will not give you any share screen privileges next month.
It's always a good bet.
Any questions, Len?
Steven Spielberg, I just have one question for you, and that was regarding 10 Division Street, the
Yeah.
blighted property.
Yes.
So you guys have lines of communication with the property owner, and they're the ones that are on the hook to
Yeah,
make the
the
work?
property owner is, they know who the property owner is. Whether or not there are lines of communication at this moment in time, that's debatable. The taxes have been paid as of last year, so it's not an issue of somebody having walked away from the property, but it is certainly a case of somebody having walked away from the property, in every other sense of the phrase. So, again, the tenants at 8 and 4 and 12 on Division Street are I presume, very happy right now. It's been an ongoing issue for them.
Okay.
Can I just flesh this property out a little bit?
Sure. Oh, yeah, Steve. Sure.
So as of today, we just invoiced the property owner about $2,000 in cleaning and fees associated with securing the property. We've actually tracked the owner down. He's he's hiding out in Orange County. He refuses to come to the city to be served. We have several civil summons out for him because of this property. He's camped out in his dad's house, apparently. So we've obviously billed him. Those costs will be attached to his taxes, and we're probably going to send him another round of tickets, just so that when he does surface, he'll be facing multiple court summons.
Hey, Stephen, as long as we've got you here, my last information on this was during the meeting of the 5th, and this is 12 days later now. Do we know whether or not the property has been boarded up and the eviction notice served?
Yeah, so that's why that's what the $2,000 bill was for. We removed a large amount of garbage. We boarded up several windows. We've notified the tenants that there's been a vacate order. So that's what I was talking about. We've done all that as of today. So that's where he's at. And we've located the property owner. He's just basically, he said he's not coming back so that we won't serve him these tickets. So I guess that's his new strategy.
Well, either way, thank you, Stephen, for being aggressive on this and cleaning this property up. Much appreciated.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mark. All right, next on the agenda is the Legislative Committee, and that's Councilmember Rafter.
Thank you. And the committee met on Monday, November 9, last week. We had 3 items on the agenda. Katie Lepari-Shu presented a proposal for expanding the mask ordinance somewhere in the future, and that discussion ended with an agreement to consider these changes or other ones as appropriate as future conditions develop in the city as new semester begins and the season proceeds. We also had a brief discussion of the flag policy, which is on the agenda for this evening, and the sewer rate table increase, which is also on the agenda for this evening. So that was the scope of that set of discussions.
Questions, anyone? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And our other committee report is Finance and Human Resources Committee. Councilmember Carson.
Unfortunately, Mayor, I will not be able to make it as eloquent and exciting as Mark does for the Board of Public Service. But anyways, Finance and Human Resource met on November 9th. All committee members were present. The list of items are in the consent agenda. I would also like to bring forward that Ginny reported the FEMA claims is looking good for us so far, and the round 3 CARES Act for the ambulance revenues is also looking good for us. Is there any questions for the motions that are presented before you on the consent agenda?
Okay, thank you very much, Len. Okay, with that, we will now go to Dr. Jorgensen for our health officer report.
Thank you, and hi, everybody. Happy birthday, Len. Right, share screen. So big picture in the world, we're now over 54 million cases, averaging as high as 500,000 new cases a day, and over 1.3 million deaths with 8,000 to 9,000 deaths per day. You can see on the graphs that rates are increasing for both new cases and deaths. Places in the world where this is primarily happening is here in the United States, as well as many European countries. Here in the United States, I'm gonna move my, you can see the, we're now at 11 million plus and over 240,000 deaths. The 7-day moving average of new cases is over 150,000, which is a significant increase. And the 7-day moving average of deaths exceeds 1,000 a day. Most states are seeing increases. Where we're seeing the most significant increases continue to be in the Midwestern and Upper Western states. And here you just see how the deaths are also increasing. This is also from the CDC, and it shows how New York State is also showing increased cases. The CDC separates out New York City from other parts of New York, but again, you can see we're increasing. Yesterday, there were over 5,000 positive cases in New York State. This is a significant increase. If you remember back in the summer and early fall, we were down well below 1,000 cases a day. Here's another way to look at the numbers from the New York State Department of Health. The percent positivity is nowhere near what it was back when the first wave hit the primarily metropolitan region, but you can see that the positivity, which was down around 1%, is now trending upward. So that the 5,000 positive cases yesterday represent 3.2% positivity, with a 2.9% average over the last week. Here it's also broken down in terms of regions, and we're in the Mohawk Valley. Yesterday had a positivity of 3.1% for a 2.3% 7-day average. So we're about at the state average. Interestingly, you can see the highest percent positivity now is in Western New York. So as many of you know, in response to all this, last week, the governor issued a new order whereby any bars, restaurants, gyms, and any state liquor authority licensed establishment must close for in-person service by 10 p.m. Also, indoor and outdoor gatherings will be limited to 10 persons. So that's a significant shift and simply reflects the understanding that a lot of transmission seems to be coming now from indoor spaces where people are gathering, even small gatherings in their homes. Moving on to the county, the most recent update from Otsego County Department of Health today, 6 new cases reported. There were also 6 new cases yesterday. Since November 1st, there have been 89 new cases in the county. Half of those, 45, were in the city of Oneonta. So the other important thing about this is that the number of community cases, meaning community spread, with no identifiable exposure, are rising. That means that simply what it says, that these cases cannot necessarily be traced to a single event or cluster, and that means there's community spread. We have 43 active cases in the county right now, 1 hospitalization. And that is an Otsego County patient that's hospitalized. There are 3 patients in Fox Hospital and 3 in Bassett, those being from outside of our county, except for the 1 Otsego County resident. Also of concern is our surrounding counties. Delaware County reported 10 positive cases today, and they have 63 active cases, even more than we do, and 8 patients who are currently hospitalized, none of which are actually hospitalized in Delaware County. Shenango County has 46 active cases, 3 hospitalized, with 2 new cases today, and Schoharie County has 34 active cases. So I mention this just so that we have an awareness as a central city in this region that the counties around us, as well as we in Oneonta, are showing continued positivity. Here's Oneonta's chart. You can see that, you know, we clearly recovered from the big outbreak associated with SUNY around the 1st of September, and then around the 1st of November, the Hartwick College outbreak, which totaled 67 students. But we continue to see a couple positive almost every day. So again, just an awareness, it's still with us. Let's see where we are here. Oh, wastewater. Good news. Our most recent wastewater was below level of quantification. So you can see now that Otsego County, as of today, has moved to a neutral alert level. We're no longer on a positive alert level, although that is, and that's with a moderate amount of confidence. Yeah, I think those are all my slides. So I'll go back to here. So other thoughts. Testing and testing supplies remain an issue. When I talked to Fox Incident Command yesterday, they expressed concern because they had been expecting an order for their rapid test analyzer that had not come through, and their testing, which was being sent out to Mayo Clinic and other places, was taking a number of days. The county, which, as you recall, had reserved a number of test kits for the rapid test analyzers that had been retained after we had the outbreak at SUNY and used them in Oneonta. Many of those test kits they no longer have in reserve because they were used at Bassett for an employee outbreak there. So again, I think the mayor is well aware of this and has been tirelessly advocating for more testing resources, but it continues to be of concern in the community. In terms of the colleges, the mayor talked about the opening plan, and I would just echo what he says. It's very much, there is an emphasis on involvement with the off-campus student population, which I think we can all find very reassuring. I think, Greg, you may like to hear that it says one of the many metrics they're going to be watching as they go forward is the wastewater. So it says, if city wastewater tests indicate significant increases of COVID-19, the college will increase its mandatory testing of off-campus students. So again, just a real awareness of how the off-campus student population may be impacting the city and vice versa. Students are expected to come back to SUNY the 3rd week of January, and there will be a J-term at Hartwick. All students, by the way, are leaving this week, and all students both at Hartwick and SUNY that remain are being tested before they leave, and they will all be tested before they come back. And there will be ongoing testing on both college campuses once students return. Students will return to Hartwick prior to the J-term starting on January 18th. I think that's about it. And I think, you know, I feel like we have a real handle on the student populations now. And again, as I was saying before, I think where we will need to be very mindful of the fact there's still presence in the community and in surrounding communities. So as we move forward into the holiday season, we're all going to be needing to be careful about gathering indoors, both in private and public spaces. I think the mask ordinance will truly help. The CDC last week did actually publish a scientific brief updating the mask guidance, saying that there is clear evidence now that wearing a mask will protect the wearer as well as the people around us. So hopefully in some of our ongoing public health messaging, we can let people understand that and hopefully support people in all the ways we have been to wear masks, to practice social distancing. And I will just end with saying, Gary, I wish you and Connie well, and you're in my thoughts. Any questions? Dave?
Yeah, and I apologize if you already said this, but did you review the new travel restrictions between contiguous states and non-contiguous states?
I did not, and I will be happy to. So the purpose the purpose behind this is coming from New York State again by the governor's executive order, and the purpose is really to discourage people from traveling around the holidays. But what it does, whereas before, as you recall, there were a list of states, usually numbering in the 30s, from which if people were traveling from them would have to self-quarantine for 14 days. That list no longer exists. The list, the travel advisory applies to anyone returning from a state that is not a directly contiguous state, meaning Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont. So anyone coming from any state besides those states and from most other countries have to quarantine for 14 days unless they can show evidence of having obtained a test prior to departure from where they came from within 3 days, and then obtain another test 4 days after, at a minimum of 4 days after arriving here. So if someone were able to obtain a test 4 days after they arrived and get that result back, and rapid tests will be okay for this, could potentially be out of that quarantine by day 4 or 5 after arriving here. There's always the option of doing the full 14-day quarantine. Again, what I see as an issue with this travel advisory is that it's not always easy to get tests, and it's not always, they're not, even when we can get tests here in this community, results are not always quickly obtained. So that's the new travel advisory. Does anyone have questions about that or anything else?
I do. Yes, Diane, I've never, well, I haven't until now, but asked this question. Is there any correlation between antibody testing and the numbers of people who are upstream, who may be suffering from COVID?
Meaning,
as you test, as test results are derived from the wastewater, is there any indication of correlation between the numbers of people who are suffering from COVID or producing those antibodies upstream of the collection point?
okay, I think I understand the question. So what we're measuring in wastewater are not the antibodies, but the actual viral RNA fragments.
Okay, the RNA, excuse me.
So the question is, does the presence of wastewater RNA tell us anything about the actual prevalence?
Yes.
I think they're still figuring it out. There are thresholds which vary and are being developed in terms of, 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000. It's a pretty sensitive test. So what they tell us, the people that are designing these platforms, is that the most useful use of them is to look at trends over time. So the trends increasing, that may well be an indicator that we're going to be seeing more infection or cases in the community. That's how the science was designed. Now, what we seem to be seeing is it's more simply of a reflection of what is. And part of that may be because people continue to shed the virus even after they're infected. So I have to say, I think we're still figuring it out, and Greg, please feel free to join in here if you have any other insights about that.
No, Diane, I think you said it well. It's still being developed as far as the analysis of trying to determine number of cases upstream. It's just not there yet. We need more research to go into it. It certainly has been indicative of, when we've seen a spike in cases in our area, we have seen a spike in the wastewater. But to correlate that to a number of cases upstream, we're just not there yet.
Okay. And I have a second question, but where are the points of collection now? Is there a single point where we're collecting the RNA, or are there multiple sections that might actually help us discriminate between one area or another?
There's just one point of collection at the wastewater plants in Flint, which obviously is taking the entire city and portions of the town. SUNY Oneonta is also monitoring their wastewater at the college at several points. Based on what I've been learning from Syracuse, the researchers there, they don't recommend breaking down the community of our size any smaller than what we have it.
Just curious about the detail of that. Thank you.
Sure.
So, John, I would also add that, so for the college, it was helpful because they saw in the one dorm where they, at the onset of their outbreak, they saw an uptick in a dorm that then led them to do pool testing a couple of days before they would have otherwise. And I think they really feel that helped them find and isolate their positive students a little more readily. So I think, I think that they really, the campus people that are doing this work believe that the technology can be of help, and how maybe it can be of use in the city is that if again, we do see an uptick, and at that point we have a significant student population in the city, they could then offer that pool testing or in fact mandate that pool testing for students. So anyway, that's just a little more explanation about it.
Okay, thanks.
Katie?
Okay, thank you. I have what might seem like a silly question, but I wondered with regard to the travel restrictions around holiday, who is monitoring travel restrictions, and what is the accountability for that?
This is a good question. If you enter by plane, you are required to fill out a form, and they meet you in the airport with the forms if you haven't done it ahead of time online. Up until this point, I am aware that a number of people, when they've come in from out of state, have self-reported to the county that they are in quarantine. And sometimes the county quarantine numbers reflect that. But certainly not everyone does that, nor I think is that in and of itself a mandate. I think a lot of this is just guidance that relies on people's good faith. Certainly if someone is aware of someone who is not following this order, they can be reported in the same way you report anyone to the state numbers that are on the State Department of Health site, or even directly to the County Department of Health. I'm not sure. I think it is known, but I don't know what kind of penalties might be involved if someone were to not follow this advisory. I think there are penalties if they're caught. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Len?
I just want to make sure our primary education students are doing okay. Has there been any reported cases in any of our school systems? Dave is not going to.
Yeah, Greater Plains had a positive case, right? Dave, do you know about that?
Greater Plains is on 100% virtual this week because of the cases and the number of teachers that had to quarantine. And what's really become a problem are finding substitutes. I mean, before COVID, we were having trouble finding substitutes, and now it's next to impossible to get anybody to come in.
Right now, if I understand this correctly, we've had one of our primary education school systems have positive cases. Just the one school.
Yes, one of the elementary schools had a positive case of a child, and because of that, and it's not the first one, but this is the one that it forced so many people to quarantine, and they couldn't get substitutes, and so Tom Brinley decided it was better to go 100% virtual this week. And then by next week, we should be able to get some of the teachers back, and then we'll be on Thanksgiving break.
Okay, thank you both.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you very much, Diane. Next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 City Task Force. Councilmember Risberger, are you going to provide that report?
I really have nothing else to add other than what Diane has already presented. I think she did a very thorough job. I looked through my notes as she was presenting, and she hit everything. The only other thing I could add is that Chief of Police was not at that meeting this week, but our fire chief was, and their PPE levels are adequate at this time. If there's anything I'm missing, please let everybody know. I know Scott was at the meeting too, so if there's anything I've missed, Scott, go ahead.
No, Dave, you got it all. We talked about the PPE, and as always, Diane is easy to go after. She's pretty thorough.
She covers everything.
And as soon as I can get my camera back on, I'll get it on, I promise.
I can let Diane read the consent agenda too, if she likes. Okay, then we'll go to the consent agenda. Number one, motion that the council approves the minutes of the regular meeting, which was held November 3rd, 2020. Motion two, that the council approves the minutes of the special meeting for the purpose of discussing the 2021 budget, which was held on November 5th, 2020. And motion three, that the council approves the minutes of the special meeting, which was also for discussion on the 2021 budget. And that was held on November 12th, 2020. Motion four. Motion that the council approves the warrants, and they total $734,197.53. And that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. Five, motion that the council adopts revisions to the Administrative Personnel Manual as presented. This would take effect January 1, 2021. Six, motion that the council adopts revisions to the Title VI plan for Oneonta Public Transit as presented. Additionally, the council reaffirms its commitment to adhere to provisions of Title VI of the U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, race, national origin, and religion, as they relate to services that are provided by the city's Oneonta Public Transit Program. Seven, motion that the council authorizes a waiver of provisions of the city's purchasing policies and procedures manual. This is associated with professional services, as the proposed consultant has extensive experience and familiarity with city engineering, street design standards, and administrative processes, and further authorizes the mayor to enter into a contract with Delaware Engineering, subject to review by the city attorney, for engineering services including design, preparation of specifications, drawings, and bid documents, and construction oversight related to the West Street reconstruction project for costs not to exceed $112,000. 8, motion that the council approves the following. Whereas the city of Oneonta has been awarded funding under Governor Cuomo's 2020 Accelerated Transit Capital, that's known as ATC program, in the amount of $101,474. And whereas this ATC award provides 100% state capital funding to rehabilitate, restore, and modernize public transportation services in upstate New York. And whereas the city is required to submit an application for state approval for the disbursement of these funds. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor is authorized to submit an application for the release of those funds, which shall also request the funds to be utilized towards the construction of the Transit Hub capital project. And be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute any grant agreements upon approval of this application. Excuse me. And be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to order any necessary budget amendments and transfers and actions to provide additional required information to implement the approval of this application, all subject to review by the city attorney. 9, motion that the council approves the budget transfers totaling $100,500 as they are presented. 10, motion that the council adopts the local law amending provisions of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code, Chapter 236, entitled Sewers, which would extend dates previously stated for the billing of usage. This law was laid electronically on November 9th, 2020. 11, motion that the council establishes a policy that only the flag of the United States, the flag of the state of New York, or of the city of Oneonta shall be flown on any flagpole owned by the city of Oneonta and which is located in front of or adjacent to any public building in the city. In addition to those flags, the flags of various branches of the United States military services may be flown on the Veterans Memorial flagpoles located in Nero Park. That concludes the consent agenda. Let me know of any requests to remove any of those items. Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
I'd like to remove 7 and 11, please.
7 and 11. Any other requests? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 7 and 11. That's moved by Councilmember Carson. I have a second by Lepari-Shu. I'll call a vote. Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davies.
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Rafter.
Yes.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The consent agenda minus 7 and 11 is passed. I'll now go to motion 7. This is regards the waiving of the purchasing policy procedures for hiring Delaware Engineering to do the design work and engineering consulting work for the West Street reconstruction project. Do I have anyone who would move this motion? Councilmember Murphy, do I have a second? Councilmember Davies, discussion.
Yeah, I just want to ask a little bit about this. This is the second time that we're being asked to waive this policy in favor of Delaware Engineering. And I know that they're a local firm and I absolutely support that as kind of a rule. But I just wondered what the benefit in this particular project, or I guess in general, of waiving that policy consistently is to the city, and if anyone could speak to that.
I'll let Greg talk to the specifics of that. In general, the council's asked to waive the policy when it's believed that the knowledge of the specific issue, familiarity with the specific issue, the expertise on that issue is beneficial to us by hiring that specific consultant. But I see Dave Merzick has his hand up.
The one thing you should be aware of is the professional services are exempt from the regular bidding statutes. So, for example, professional services are considered very different than like purchasing gravel or salt or things like that, because professional services matter. Who is doing it matters as much as what's being done. So for all professional services, they're exempt from the statutory bidding requirements. However, we do have in our purchasing policy things that suggest that when professional services are being requested, that they go through RFPs, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to lay the groundwork to understand that the council does not have to go through the normal bidding processes anyway when you're providing professional services. But then you can waive the particular RFP requirements when in fact there's intimate knowledge or availability or things like that. And I was not a part of this process, but I just wanted to explain to you the background of the context that we're putting it in. And Greg can talk to the expertise or why they chose to do Delaware Engineering over going through the RFP process.
Thank you.
Sure. As far as using Delaware Engineering in this particular case, as the motion indicates, their experience with the city on these types of projects, their familiarity with our design standards and how we do things, kind of gives them an edge over other consultants that, do similar work such as this type of design. It's going to reduce the administrative burden on our department to be able to work with someone who's familiar with these sorts of things. They're familiar with the specifics of the city. They've done work on our streets before. And we know their staff. They're a known commodity. We know they're fully capable of doing this. There's no question about that. And really also in the interest of expediency, it's the most efficient way to go forward with someone we know who is more than capable of doing the job, in my opinion.
Sounds good. Thank you, Greg.
Len Carson.
Also, Katie, be advised that because they're just so familiar with our city's infrastructure that we received a better price. That is a fixed cost that we will not exceed for this large project. That's what kind of swayed me towards this.
Yeah, of course, their travel costs will be minimal if existing at all, given that they're here versus a company outside of the city.
Any further discussion, anyone? Okay, then I'll take the vote. Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davies.
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson,
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington, Scott,
Yes, sorry about that.
Councilmember Rafter,
Yes.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Now we're going to go to motion 11. This regards the establishing a policy regarding the use of city flagpoles. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Councilmember Harrington, do I have a second? Councilmember Murphy, discussion.
Yep. So I also brought this up in legislative committee, and I figured, or I was advised, and so I figured I would bring it to before the council to just ask about the wording and suggest where it says the United States flag, the state flag of New York. It says or the flag of the city of Oneonta, and I would, if it's at all possible, recommend it say and or, just so that we don't limit ourselves in that way.
Gary, I think the discussion in legislative committee about that, like Katie was saying, was we just didn't know if it was going to change the meaning of the sentence. Does that sound right, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it would change the meaning of the sentence, and so I think we wanted to have a conversation around that.
I figured
and what that
Mr. Merzig could give
Yeah,
input.
I'll call upon the author.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it makes any difference. If you'd like to put and on there, because I don't know of any circumstance where we fly, for example, the city of Oneonta flag independently of except perhaps in council chambers, where the city of Oneonta flag is flown outside just by itself. So I don't think it makes any difference. But so if you'd like to add and to provide greater flexibility, I certainly have no objection to that.
Okay. Do I need any formal action to do that, David?
Well, there should be a friendly amendment.
Okay, so
Len had a question. I just don't know if you want to address Len's question before you do that.
Sounds good. Len?
I just wanted to ask the committee members, was there a reason why the POW flag was not thought of? Because that has been flown on municipal flagpoles for quite some period of time. It's a form of military recognition of our prisoners of war. I was just wondering if the committee had that discussion.
I'd ask Mr. Merzig again to answer that question, if he doesn't mind.
Well, the only reason that we excluded, at least at this point, any other flag was to avoid, or was to make sure that we weren't advancing any particular group's flag over any other particular group's flag. And the lack of a policy, it hadn't been a problem. But again, if we start saying that for the VFW, we're going to do the MIA POW flag, or for any particular organization, we're using a flag that we deem for benefit of one organization or another, that we're opening ourselves up to a situation where we're approving activities of one group over another. If you want to start going down that road, you can do it, but I think it's the proverbial slippery slope.
Agree, but I just want to clarify that the prisoner of war flag is not representative to the veterans, foreign wars, and or the American Legion. So just for clarification purposes, the POW flag was established differently than that.
How is it established?
Well, at this point, I'm not the author of that, so to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to give you the actual reference.
Yeah, the point is it's not a governmental it's not a representation of a currently presiding governmental entity. So that's
Okay, and you're firm on that, David?
Well, it's not a firmness issue. I don't make the determination. The council makes the determination. However, I do think that if the council starts picking and choosing between what flags it allows on public flagpoles, that it becomes an equal protection issue, and who's going to have the right to use public facilities for public expressions and who's not. I mean, it's simply the the whole Muller Plaza argument raised, no pun intended, to a higher level.
Glenn, are you thinking, or are you good to move on? You're muted, Glenn.
Glenn.
Guess the computer won't let me do two things at once. I was actually just looking on the internet.
All right. Len, is it okay if I call upon Scott while you're doing that?
Just real quick, Gary, it says here on November 7th, 2019, the National POW/MIA Flag Act was signed into law requiring the POW/MIA flag to be flown on certain federal properties, including the United States Capitol building. On all days, the flag of the United States is flown. So
Again, you can create whatever policy you wish to create. You're muted.
You're muted, Len.
again, real quick, there was a law signed by the 116th Congress on November 7th, 2019 regarding the National POW/MIA Flag Act. So I just wondered if maybe the committee would take a look at that aspect.
You can also, well, let's let Scott has had his hand up. Let's let Scott have his turn to speak.
Just a couple of quick questions. With the flagpole policy, if it's a department, like say we have a line of duty death and we decide, so let's just use say it was like in the fire department and they wanted to put their flag on and bring it down to half staff with the others, would that be allowed? Or is this flagpole policy saying this is strictly it, and even us as a municipality can't order another flag on there? You know, that's just kind of a question. I don't know if that can be answered or not.
Sure. This council establishes the policy of what flags can be flown on flagpoles in the municipality. Just as you've made a resolution, you can change the resolution.
So
However,
if you the issue of half-mast, though, David, I mean, that's not under council control.
Half-mast is determined by the chief executive officer. It's either created by the president of the United States, the governor of the state, or the city where the flag is being flown of the city, not the United States flag. The United States flag can only be flown at half staff at the direction of either the president or at the governor of the state in which the flag is located. That's federal statute. However, the mayor controls the half staff of the city flag within the city.
Right. I don't know. I kind of question the flagpole policy in general. I went back and I asked a past city clerk and the current city clerk on how many times anybody's even asked to fly anything on there, and they've all told me none. So I'm not really sure why all of a sudden this came flying up to the forefront. And I guess I just have some issues with it. And Len brings up a good question with the POW flag. I was just wondering, maybe we should just send it back down and let's look at it again to make sure this is exactly 100% what everybody wants. And try to
Okay,
think
so-
of the scenarios.
At this point, we have a motion on the floor. David can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can either, if somebody wants to move forward with a friendly amendment or a request to table. Outside of that, we go to vote.
That's correct.
I like the request to table it.
Okay, so then what I'm hearing then is a motion from Councilmember Harrington to table this. I need a second to go forward.
I would second it.
Councilmember Carson. I'm now going to call a vote where aye means you agree to table it. Nay means you do not, in which case you go forward with a vote. Councilmember Murphy.
Nay.
Councilmember, I lost track of things. Davies.
Nay.
Councilmember Risberger.
No.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Rafter.
Aye.
Councilmember Drenick. Councilmember Drenick.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Okay. My count is that's 5 ayes, which means it is tabled. Okay. We will now move down to, we have 2 more motions for discussion. Motion 12 is that the council adopts the local law amending certain provisions of the city charter, which would make modifications to the position of city manager. This law was laid electronically on November 9th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Councilmember Murphy. Do I have a second? Councilmember Davies. Discussion? Councilmember Carson.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for our city attorney. David, obviously you authored the change to the city charter with this law. Based on the recommendation of the committee and council to you, are we subject to any lawsuit? Meaning we're not in subject to breaking any law, meaning with regards to the city charter, we don't have to go to a public referendum to do this change.
It's my opinion that we do not.
Councilmember Harrington.
Kind of the same lines. I wrote notes down, David, to ask questions. So under the
You should
same
understand,
line,
I didn't write it.
I know.
I formulated it.
Is there any case law or any precedents of that doing this is? I personally feel that this isn't a small change. I feel that this is a big change. And So I was just wondering, like, if there's any case law out there that you already know of that allows this to happen, or
Yeah, until 1985, charter changes could only be made by a special act of the legislature. In 1985, the legislature passed a law that said that city charters could be amended by means of a local law, so long as one topic was being addressed. So between 1985 and now, we've had multiple situations where we changed the city charter, again, addressing one topic at a time. We can't change the period of time for. We can't change the number of council members. We can't change the period of time that you serve. We can't change your powers, but we can change the charter along one topic area one at a time. We made a significant. I don't know if you look back at the changes that were made in 2016, but there were significant changes made then without a charter revision. We knew that when we did the main charter change that there would be a lot of issues, technical errors that need to be changed and modified. So the first major revision, I believe, was 2016. I'm not positive, but I think it was.
so it's not that it's one topic. It's not that because we changed, say, the wording of manager to administrator. It's not that it changed it across the board in a lot of the charter. It's the topic that we're just changing the wording from manager to administrator, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If I could add to that, Scott, there is a state statute called the Home Rule Law. And if you take a look at it, there's a section in it where it states the specific items that cannot be changed in a charter without a referendum. Is very specific what items cannot be changed. One of them is you cannot take any powers away from an elected official. And then there's a list of, if I recall correctly, there's about 10 or 11 items listed there. This is not one of them.
Also, just parenthetically, the city manager is not an elected official. So,
Sorry, Gary, where did you reference that?
The Home Rule Law.
Okay, thank you.
General Municipal Home Rule Law, look at section 21 through 25.
Any further discussion? Then I will call the vote. Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger?
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
I don't suppose I can say skip, right?
You can
Aye.
abstain.
No, aye.
Councilmember Rafter?
Aye.
Councilmember Drenick?
Aye.
Okay, that passes, and the final signing and enactment of this will require a public hearing, which will take place 2 weeks from today. Motion 13 is motion that the council approves the 2021 tentative budget as presented for a public hearing, which will be scheduled for November 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Councilmember Carson. Do we have a second? Councilmember Drenick. Discussion. Councilmember Harrington.
Just a procedure question here. If this passes, then if we try to change anything from here on out, it takes the 2/3 majority, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'll just say it one more time. I know I said it in the budget meeting. I think this is an awful lot in this time the time that we're looking at, and a little bit that I've been really watching the news, where I'm watching some of President-elect's talking, looking at one of his COVID task force members is talking about a possible another 4 to 6 week shutdown, not knowing what Governor Cuomo might look at. I just think a 2, a 10, and a 5, I just think we're looking at a lot of money with businesses barely hanging on and with people being out of work. So I'm not sure, as I sit here right now, that I'm going to be in favor of this budget.
Any other further discussion? Okay, then I'll call the vote. Councilmember Murphy,
Aye.
Councilmember Davies,
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger,
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu,
Aye.
Councilmember Carson,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
No.
Councilmember Rafter,
Aye.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes for the tentative budget. We will have a public hearing on this budget. It will be posted for the public to review, and we will have a public hearing scheduled for November 24th at 7 p.m. for the entire, in front of the entire council. Of course, that will be virtually by Zoom. Additional business. I'm not aware of any. Does anybody, is there any that I'm not aware of? Okay. I'm sorry, Councilmember Lepari Shu had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I had sent an email to the council members just asking where we were on the status of our city manager search process. And I know, Mayor, that that's something that you had wanted, a discussion that you'd wanted to have an open meeting. So I was hoping that we could just talk about where we go from here.
If it's, okay with everyone, I don't feel prepared. There's a lot been going on the last week or two, and it took one step towards the back burner with the budget only funding it for 6 months. If it's okay with everybody to hold that discussion at the next council meeting, I appreciate it. I have some ideas down that I wanted to float with people, but I'm honestly don't feel prepared right now. Is anyone not okay with holding that discussion for 2 weeks, given that the position only is funded for 6 months? Okay, thank you.
Well, real quick, Gary. Katie, was there
Yeah.
something specifically that you needed discussed right now, or were you looking to have another meeting planned, scheduled?
I guess I just feel like we left off on a sort of I like a strategy and benchmarks, and I feel like we sort of left it a little gray. And so I just wanted to touch base with everyone and with the mayor on what is next. It sounds like talking about it in 2 weeks is next. So.
Well, given we really changed the whole dynamic of it when the council decided to only fund it beginning July 1st, that changed the dynamic completely. And then it did also, pushing it back 6 months, honestly dropped it a couple of notches on my priority list. Okay, any further council discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, correspondence. Let me just back up for a minute. Carrie, is there any correspondence?
There is no correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Now, any further council discussion? I think I saw Councilmember Murphy's hand up. Yep.
This is a question for anybody that knows. I was just kind of trying to go through my emails and noticed that we tabled for a little bit. I just wanted to follow up on the status. Have we heard anything regarding the property of the former Bombers Burrito restaurant? I guess this is a question for general counsel, if anybody's heard anything, any interest.
This is an issue that has to do with possible litigation, which could be discussed in executive session if you wish to do so.
I think I'm all right for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Now, with that, given that, on a different subject, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss possible litigation.
So moved.
Councilmember Harrington moves it. Councilmember Murphy seconds. All in favor? Okay. Stephen Yearley and Dave Merzig will join us. And we need some magic here.
Working on it. Do you need personnel director as well?
She's welcome to join us.
That should be it.
Okay. There we go. Okay, unless there is any further business, and I'm not hearing any, thank you. We are adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody.